What's up, guys? This is EJ Holland with the Wolverine.com and On3, and we're back with another signee spotlight. It is National Signing Day. Eli Owens is officially a Michigan Wolverine. He's been part of the class for almost an entire year at this point. Eli, what does it feel like to officially put pen to paper?
Man, it feels great. Just finally getting to make everything official. And then in 2 weeks we're up there for good. So it's really all around an amazing experience.
Like I said, you've been part of this class for so long. Does it already feel like you're part of the team in a sense?
Yeah, no. The running joke with the recruiting staff the last couple games up there is that I was a part of the staff, not a recruit, which I mean it's all I've been doing since January. So it's fun.
Definitely. So let's go back to the very beginning of the recruiting process. I know you were always interested in Michigan. You made like 10 unofficial visits before you even committed or something like that. So what really, being a Tennessee guy out in the Smoky Mountains, what sparked your interest in Michigan?
Just the style of play, the brand of football. It's a brand that I like. I'm not a big fan of showing off and showing out. I like nitty gritty, rough and tumble football. And then just being able to put myself in a position on a team to play as early as possible, but also be developed. I think that Michigan has done a great job with people like me, the lower rated recruits, and getting us to where we need to be to make it to the NFL one day. And just being able to see what the tight end room has been able to do at Michigan throughout the last, 10 years has been exceptional. And it's something I've been lucky enough to step my foot through the door, and hopefully get to where I want to be.
What led to you making such an early decision? Because at that time, I remember I was on the field in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, actually, when you committed. It was the All-American Bowl, like that. The class before you was still going on. There was a lot of change going on at Michigan, too, as they were getting ready to transition from Jim Harbaugh to Sharon Moore. And you committed during that time. I remember getting the alert and being like, Eli just committed? What? And so it was kind of a surprise to a lot of people, I think. So why'd you commit during that point of transition?
Yeah, well, you were at the Alamo Dome. I was sitting in chemistry class. But I just, I had visited all these different schools, and nothing ever felt the same way I felt at Michigan. I could tell you the entire story of the first time I visited Michigan and how that felt and the way I felt leaving that building. And every time I went back to Michigan, that feeling never left me. And every time I would go visit another school, I wouldn't feel the same way I felt at Michigan. And seeing the leaps and bounds that Max took over the last 2 years, it made me realize that can be me one day. And I had to jump on the opportunity as quick as I could. I felt home, and it really is the best place for me to go.
Now, kind of fast forwarding, basically, like I said, a year from your decision, how are you feeling about Sharon Moore as head coach and the direction the program's going in?
Man, I've never dwindled. I think that people are assuming the worst just because of what's happened this past year, which is unbelievable to me. With what we've had going on with the people that have left. I won't say we weren't going to have a down year, because I don't consider this year a down year. I don't really consider any year a down year unless you go like 1-11. But I think that staying patient, staying the course, and understanding that there are bigger things, upon the horizon, bigger things in the future. It's really important to not, live in the moment and see what you are going to be able to do for the team once you get there.
So another interesting note on your commitment is you committed before Steve Casula was hired as tight ends coach. Obviously, he came in and you guys have been able to build up a strong relationship. So just talk a little bit more about how quickly you were able to build a bond with Casula and what stands out about him.
So with Coach Newsom back when he was the tight ends coach, that's the coach I committed to. That's the coach I wanted to play for. But I always felt like he wasn't, gonna ever get onto us. Like there's like that happy medium of, yelling your ass off and helping. And I thought, for me, I'm a type of kid that sometimes I'm gonna have to get yelled at. And just to get it through, my head. I'm real stubborn like that. And I never really thought that Coach Newsom would be able to get me to I'd be able to get him to the point where he'd have to yell at me. And Coach Casula, first time I meet him, he's all fired up, all energy, all the time. And I realized that I was going to be better off with Coach Casula than Coach Newsom. Now, that's not a diss on Coach Newsom. I love that man with my entire heart. I originally wanted to play for him, but getting to experience Coach Casula over the last, however many months, it's really been good. Coach Casula, man, he's such a character, and he's going to be a great guy to play football for over these next 4 years.
Like we talked about earlier, it's kind of like you're already part of the program. I know you've developed some really good relationships with players on the team already. Talk about some of the guys you've been able to connect with.
Man, Z Marsh, that's my guy. Jay Hoff, people like that. You got Deacon. I'm not as close as Deacon what I am with other guys. Like Hogan and Brady and Zach and Hoffman. And then Colston, he's really been cool to me. And then Max, Max, I've kind of tried to step in his shadow as much as I can, without actually being there. And he's helped me out in ways I can't even imagine, just giving me little tips and tricks and, telling me, making sure that I know, everything's going to be all right. But, I'm never going to be Max Bredesen. Just little funny things like that, man. And I've felt a part of the family for Lord knows how long now. And I can't wait to finally be able to be up there and play football with those guys.
You mentioned Max Bredesen, obviously. That's the guy you've gotten a lot of comparisons to. How do you think your game is similar, and how do you think it's different?
I feel like the biggest similarity in our game is that we both, love to block. Max, he stepped from a true tight end role to a true fullback role, and he has gotten so much better because of it. And he's never once, said, "Oh, but I want to catch the ball." He's been 100% in on his mission. And, it's the same way with me. If 2 years down the line, they realized that I would be better as a fullback, well, guess what? I'm going to be the best dang fullback you've ever seen. But with that being said, I feel like where we differ is, now this is me talking. I think that I could contribute a little bit more in the receiving game. I think I could do a little bit more, just because, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I just, my confidence levels and what I can do. But going in there, there's going to be some openings in a certain fullback position that I think I can fill, and I'm going to try my damnedest to do it.
Yeah, I think you can offer more in the receiving game. The season opener, I went out to see you in. You had that Odell Beckham one-handed grab that went a little viral. So, Eli can show off that receiving game, man. He can line up in the slot, line up outside. So, we all have high expectations for you. But going back to the recruiting class, like I said, you've been such a vocal leader. Yeah, some people even called you the vice president. Like that was a little bit of a nickname you got. So talk a little bit about being the vice president of the class and what your message was throughout the cycle as you helped recruit other guys to Michigan.
Well, I've been trying to allow people to understand that there's no place like Michigan, man. It's really unbelievable. Just the things we do and how we do them and how we are able to help, people get and how people shine in our program. It's truly exceptional. You can go through every single position all 22 positions, all position groups, and we have a stud in that room. And there's not a doubt in my mind that everybody coming in isn't going to be the next stud in that room, whatever that room may be. And then, throwing in the things that Michigan can do for you. I mean, the alumni base at Michigan is unreal. I live in Alcoa, Tennessee. It's 10 minutes away from Knoxville. I have 5 Michigan grads in my neighborhood alone, right? And just the extent of what Michigan can do. I mean, Lord, we're building a business school in LA. That's unbelievable. So I guess just trying to make sure that these recruits understand that Michigan is going to do so much more than football for you. It's truly going to set you up for life.
What do you think about the recruiting class? I mean, top 10 in the country for the first time since the 2022 cycle. How excited are you about what you've been able to help build?
Man, it's great. It's got me shaking a little bit. And then, just seeing every single one of these guys, not waver. Every guy that's currently committed is going to be committed and is going to sign with us. And I think that's extraordinary, because of what Coach Moore, he's been able to keep all of us, and then individual position coaches, letting their recruits understand that you have a place at Michigan and we want you to have a home here, along with, we just got ballers, man. We got players. We got people who can play football, which is what Michigan's always been about, and it's always going to be about. And hopefully we can use a certain somebody to win us a couple more national championships.
Well, someone that already committed was Bryce Underwood. You've been able to camp with him, actually caught passes from Bryce Underwood. So what do you think about just the addition of Underwood to this class and what he brings to the table as a quarterback?
Man, I think Bryce is an exceptional athlete. I think he's an exceptional football player. I think he's a great quarterback. I think, what he can do for us in the run game as well as the pass game, it opens up so much. I don't want to necessarily say more because I feel like that's a dig on the quarterbacks from this past year, which I would never do. I would never insult or try to humiliate, somebody that I'd play with or somebody that I've seen play on my team, because it's just not right. But I think that Bryce is going to be able to open up our offense in ways that you can't even think of right now and do things for our team that is just going to excel us so much here in the future. We really, truly are going to be the best of the best.
Another guy I want to ask you about, and we are recording this right before signing day. No lies to the audience. This is not going on live. But one of the question marks still left is the commitment of Andrew Olesh. Now, I'm fairly optimistic that he'll stick. Let's say he does. We don't know if he is going to sign today. He's having his ceremony on Friday, but let's assume he's part of the class. What do you think about Andrew Olesh, since he's the other tight end committed, and how you guys can complement each other?
Man, I love Andrew. He's a great kid. He's a really, really, really damn good football player. And I think that what he can do in a receiving aspect, he's a great route runner. I mean, he's exceptional. He moves so fluidly at 6'5", 6'6", however tall he is. It's crazy to watch. And I think, because he's a little bit of a skinnier guy. We get him in here, we put a little muscle on him, we teach him the playbook. He's going to be able to flourish in our offense. And if he sticks with Michigan, which I believe he will be playing on Sundays one day.
Awesome. So something that I think a lot of Michigan fans don't know is you would more often than not make the drive to Ann Arbor. And I always thought that was interesting because every time I talk to you after visits, you're like, yeah, I'm on this, 8-hour, 10-hour drive back or whatever, however long it is. Just talk about all those drives there and back, and how fun the road trips were and how much you put into just getting to Michigan to help recruit.
Well, it's actually not that long. It's only 7 hours, and then you kind of just get on I-75 and go north until you see that big old mosque there right outside of Toledo, and then you veer off to the left a little bit, and 20 minutes later, hey, guess what? You're in Ann Arbor. So It's not a bad drive at all, until you get past Cincinnati. Because once you get past Cincinnati, there's nothing. But it's really really fun. It's a lot of trips I've spent with my mom. Just getting to spend time with her. She's my best friend. She's my rock. And here in 3 weeks, I'm going to be living away from her for the first time. So getting to spend as much time as I can with my mom before I go off to college has been really really fun, and it's really helped our relationship be what it is now. I mean, I'm her best friend, she's mine. And then just getting to show all my friends and my family Ann Arbor. My grandparents have been up, my brothers have been up. And they've all, by the time we've left, said, "Hey, Eli, you made a great decision," which I couldn't be more grateful for them, supporting me throughout this process. So
When people, look and see that you're from Tennessee, I think a lot of people just assume you're Nashville area, but you're out in the Smoky Mountains. Like you're literally in the mountains, man. Like I was so sad I didn't get to see any bears while I was there, but you're in the wilderness. So you're going from the Smoky Mountains out to a different, part of the country. I guess you're moving to the Midwest in Ann Arbor. How excited are you to kind of get that experience away from home? And what do you think about Ann Arbor just as a place away from just the university?
Man, well, I will say I am a little biased. I do think where I'm from is the most beautiful place in the country. Waterfalls, wildlife, nature, just so many different things that we have. I'm 3 hours from every big city, um, but going up to Michigan, it's different, but it's beautifully different and wonderfully different. I've never really lived at somewhere as flat as Michigan before, but every time I've asked, because I'm a big wildlife guy. I like to hunt a little bit. I like to go on hikes and white people stuff. Um, I've heard about the sand dunes up there in northern Michigan, and the wilderness. Everything up in North Michigan. But going back to Ann Arbor, just seeing the beauty of the little college town, man, and seeing all the little pop up shops and the architecture. It really makes me eager to finally get up there and get to experience it for the next couple of years.
Yeah, you definitely have to take a trip to the UP up there. It's pretty nice. I don't know if it rivals the Smoky Mountains, but it's pretty awesome. So I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So speaking of getting to know you a little bit, you talked about some of your hobbies there, but just kind of expand on what Michigan fans should know about Eli Owens away from the field.
Um, Away from the field, oh God, I never really know what to say um, during this part of the interview. Yeah, I've always been, oh, that's not a question for me type of guy. But I don't know, man. I'm a hard nosed guy. I'm a big family person. I mean, hell, I'm loyal as it gets, and just that out of me, you're gonna get 4 years of football as best as I can give it to you. I mean, there's really not much more about it.
I'll give you some off the field Eli, I guess, to the fans watching. Eli is also a state champion basketball player, and he was a goalie for his soccer team. Just talk a little bit about, those experiences.
Well, sophomore year, junior year, went back to back in basketball state championships. My point guard, Javon Carter, he is currently the sixth man over at Penn State. He's probably averaging 17, 18 minutes a night, really doing what he can for them. And then soccer was just something fun. I had a couple friends on the team, and they said they needed an athlete to go play goalie. And I didn't, I've never played soccer before, but I know I can go catch a ball if I need to. And it was an experience for sure. Something I'm grateful for. And it was just something I hadn't done before that I thought I could do. So why not try it?
Another thing about Eli is he is a charitable guy. I actually nominated Eli for On3's new service award, which honors some of the best players that also help out their community. Eli, just talk a little bit about some of the charity work you do.
Oh, I didn't know you knew all that.
Hey, I'm supposed to know. It's my job.
Yeah, that is right. Well, I help coaching out the Alcoa third grade youth football team. My brother plays for that team, and I like to think myself as the offensive analyst. For a bunch of third graders. Just different things, being in the box, eyes in the sky. We take football as seriously as it gets from kindergarten down here. And then I help out, just little things like helping families, on Thanksgiving that may need it, or just doing different things around my community that I can, if it means volunteering down at the fire department for something, or helping, I help with this charity organization called the Lost Vets. We do a lot of things for homeless veterans. Just different things like that, different things to help my community. Because, like I said, I'm a real loyal family man at heart, and I treat my community as my family. It's where I'm from. It's what I've always known.
Awesome. So we're going to go rapid fire. I'm going to just ask you questions that come to the top of my head. And it's going to be kind of random all over the place. So I'm expecting some interesting answers from the vice president himself. All right. Favorite outdoor activity?
Dollywood. Does that count? Amusement parks?
Yes, but you'd have to explain it because I don't know if people know what Dollywood is.
Okay, so Dollywood is the single greatest amusement park of all time. It's like Six Flags, but better. Rides are better, and it's real country themed. Like bluegrass music and folk tales and different things like that. If you're ever in the Smoky Mountains, you got to come to Dollywood.
Dollywood is named after Dolly Parton, right? I mean,
yes,
obviously. just pointing that out there. Favorite food?
Jambalaya.
Jambalaya. Whoa. Yeah, man. Going with a Louisiana dish from the Smoky Mountains.
My grandmother figured out how to make it, and she can make some jambalaya. So.
Okay. What is your favorite holiday? We see the Christmas tree in the background. Is it Christmas or is it something
Halloween.
else?
I like Halloween. I'm a big scary movie guy.
Did you dress up this year?
No, I was busy. What was I? Oh yeah, I think I was doing homework on Halloween this year.
Okay. What's your favorite scary movie then?
Oh Lord, does a haunted house count? The comedy movie with Mark Wayans from a couple years ago.
No. I'm thinking about a different one.
That's my favorite Halloween movie. My favorite scary movie. I like the Rob Zombie Halloween. I like the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. I'm more of a gore guy.
Ah, man, I don't know about that. I can't do the gore too much, man. But let's go with favorite athlete.
Delaney Walker.
Obviously, fits the mold of Eli Owens. I think I asked you this in a previous interview, but let's go again. If you could take a vacation, and I'm going to exclude your answer. If you could take a vacation anywhere in the world other than your own home in the Smoky Mountains, where would you go?
Rome.
Rome. Why Rome?
I'm a big history buff, and all roads are supposed to lead to Rome, right?
Yeah, touche, I guess. So, what are you going to study at Michigan?
I'm going to major in communications with a minor in sports management.
And what do you want to do with the communications degree?
I want to be a broadcaster. I met Jake Butt last time I was up there for the Michigan State game, and I basically told him that I want to take his job one day. So
you would be perfect for the broadcaster job. So you got the voice, you got the personality. So I fully expect it down the line. And if it doesn't work out, you should run for vice president. I mean, come on, man. You're
I'm not the biggest politics guy on the planet. Now, with that being said, by the time I become 35, that could all change. I mean, that's 17 years from now, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. All right, let's go with favorite pregame music.
Ooh, Punk rock.
Punk rock?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can name a punk rock artist, so give an example.
Okay, so like older Paramore, Sleeping with Sirens, hold on. Can you still see me?
No, you've got black.
Oh, well,
Eli
I'm
Owens.
going to my punk rock playlist right now.
Are you
Pierce
about to play us some?
things like that. Real upbeat, do type music. Just something that like will get me firing. And then right before the games, that's when I slow it down into R&B music, stuff like that. So like before we go out for warm-ups, it's punk rock. Then after we come back in for warm-ups, it's slower R&B music.
Well, we got the Eli Owens playlist now. Even I thought you were about to play us some punk rock music, get us hyped up here, but
gosh, I don't know. It might be a little too early for that.
I guess last thing, and this isn't an off the field thing, it's just kind of wrapping up the interview here. 3 to 4 years from now, where do you see yourself? What individual goals do you have, and where do you see Michigan? What team goals do you have?
Individual goals, I'd like to have been graduated. I would like, hopefully by that point I'd have my master's. I'd like to have won a couple conference championships, maybe a national championship. And then just by that point, I'd hope I'd done enough in my career to make sure I'm remembered throughout the city of Ann Arbor and done enough throughout my playing career that I can play on Sundays. It's really as basic as I can get.
Awesome, Eli. These were supposed to be like 10 to 15 minutes, and we've gone almost half an hour because you've given awesome answers. So hopefully people have tuned in for the full Eli Owens experience. Before we get out of here, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's completely free. Like this video, subscribe to thewolverine.com for more signing day content. $1 for 2 months. Use that promo code UM1. And Eli, it has been a pleasure getting to know you throughout the recruiting process. Thank you for all the interviews and everything.
Of course, man. Of course.